Legacy is not a guarantee. It is an accident. You may be at the center of the universe, see God with your own eyes, and still, forgetfulness will swallow you whole. For most men, forgetfulness is their destiny. But what we do not expect is that forgetfulness will claim men who were chosen to be unforgettable. There was a group of men who were selected by history, or by something greater than it, 12 of them. Farmers, fishermen, tax collectors. An unlikely group. But they were taken out of their nets and their accounting tables to become the innermost circle of the most important event in human history. They were not mere students. They were companions. They were eyewitnesses to everything. They saw the water turn into wine at Cana. They saw a man born paralyzed get up and walk. They were in the boat, screaming in terror, while the storm threatened to drown them, and they saw their teacher stand up and command the wind and the sea to be still. They ate the bread and the fish that multiplied in their own hands, feeding a crowd of 5,000. They saw a friend, Lazarus, come out of the tomb after 4 days, still wrapped in his burial cloth. These men not only listened to the parables, they were the only ones who received the explanations in private. They sat around the fire at night, discussing, doubting, misinterpreting, while the universe itself revealed its secrets to them. And in the end, they sat in that high room at the Last Supper, and they were told that they were the foundation of a new world. Their names, it was promised, would be written on the 12 foundation stones of the holy city. They were destined for eternal fame. They were the 12 apostles. And yet fame is a very selective spotlight. It can only illuminate a few. For some names to become pillars supporting the sky, others must remain in the shadows, bearing the same weight but without receiving the same glory. And so it was with them. History, in its cruel economy, decided that it only needed a few. The building of faith only needed a handful of public faces. I needed Peter, the impulsive fisherman, the rock, the man who denied his master and was then restored to lead. His story is complete, from the Sea of Galilee to his crucifixion upside down in Rome. His personality is so vivid that we can almost hear his voice. I needed Paul, the convert, the intellectual, the theological engine. His letters formed half of the New Testament. His biography, his journeys, his shipwrecks, his imprisonments, everything is recorded. And I needed John, the beloved disciple, the one who leaned on Jesus' chest, who stayed at the foot of the cross, who wrote his own gospel, 3 letters and an apocalypse. Peter, Paul, and John, the rock, the mind, and the heart. They became the giants, but they were 12. What happened to the others? What happened to the men who saw the same, heard the same, received the same commission? The story and the text itself begin to fall silent. We know their names, but the names are empty. They are placeholders. Simon the Zealot. What do we know about him? A single word. The Zealot. A revolutionary, a Jewish nationalist, a man who probably believed in the liberation of Israel through violence. A man who must have spent 3 years sitting next to Matthew, the tax collector, the collaborator of Rome, the traitor to the cause. The conversations they must have had, the hatred, the tension, the slow and impossible journey towards forgiveness. An entire human story, an incredible drama, all reduced to a single label. After his name is listed, he disappears from the record. Santiago, the son of Alfeo. So many important people were named Santiago that he had to be distinguished by his lack of importance. They called him Santiago the Lesser, the smaller, the least. His very identity is darkness. Judas Tadeo, not the Iscariot. He had to be defined by the man he was not. He is recorded as asking only one question at the Last Supper, a confusing question about why Jesus manifested himself to them and not to the world. And then, nothing. Bartholomew, whom we call Nathaniel. He had a beautiful first encounter. Behold an Israelite indeed, in whom is no deceit, Jesus said of him. I saw you under the fig tree. A moment of deep connection, of mystical recognition. And after that moment, silence. 3 years of silence, a whole life of silence. These men, at least, walked with him from the beginning. They were witnesses to the entire ministry. Their silence is profound, but they were there. But there was an apostle who didn't even have that. A man who was called at the last minute, not by a miracle or a vision, but due to administrative necessity. a man called to fill the most terrible void, and whose destiny was to be the replacement, and nothing more. His name was Matthias, and he is the apostle who disappeared. To understand his disappearance, we must understand his arrival. The scene is Jerusalem, in the tense and strange days between Jesus' ascension and the Feast of Pentecost. The 11 remaining apostles are hiding in the upper room. They are terrified, confused, but also filled with a new and strange hope. They have seen the risen one. He has given them a mission. Go into all the world. But there is a problem of numbers, a problem of structure. There are 11. And the number has always been 12. 12 tribes of Israel. 12 thrones from which they would judge. 12 foundations for the new city. The circle is broken. The structure is spiritually incomplete. It is not just an empty seat. It is an open wound. And the seat is not simply empty. It belonged to Judas Iscariot, the traitor, the one who had sold them out, the one who hanged himself, whose body, according to tradition, had fallen and burst in half. The horror of his betrayal and his suicide hung over that room. The 12th seat was not empty. It was stained. It was cursed. And Pedro, always the leader, stood up. He quoted the scriptures, "Let his habitation be desolate, and let another take his office." He declared that the position needed to be filled. The wound had to be closed. And he set the criteria. It couldn't be just anyone. It had to be someone who had been there all along, but in the shadows. Someone who had witnessed everything, from Jesus' baptism by John to the day he was taken up to heaven. 2 men met the requirements. 2 men from the outer circle of disciples who had walked with them, without being chosen, during the 3 years. The first was Joseph, called Barsabbas, who was also called Justus, a man so respected that he had been given 2 honorable nicknames. It seemed the obvious choice. The other was a man simply called Matthias. Let's imagine those 2 men, Joseph the Just and Matthias. What do we know about Matthias? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's a name without a biography. Maybe he was quiet. Maybe he was the kind of person who never raised his hand, who simply served and observed. A reliable man, but forgettable. They stood before the 11. 2 men to occupy the most infamous seat in history. And how did the apostles choose? There was no debate. There was no vote. They did what they would do in a situation of total uncertainty. They left the decision to God. They prayed, "You, Lord, who know the hearts of all, show which of these 2 you have chosen to take the place of this ministry and apostleship from which Judas fell by transgression." And then they cast lots. It is an act that seems strange to us, almost pagan. It was a divine game of chance. Marked stones or sticks taken from a vessel. A cosmic dice throw. And luck, chance, God's will fell upon the unbiographed man. It fell on Matthias. Let's imagine being him at that moment. One instant, you are just another disciple in the crowd. The next, by the luck of a falling stone, you are the 12th apostle. You are the replacement for Judas. You have the mantle. You have the throne. You have the authority. You have been counted among the 11. People look at you differently. The other apostles welcome you. You have reached the top. And at the exact moment Matthias is counted among the apostles, history abandons him. It is the most complete disappearance in history. His appointment is the last recorded act about him. The book of Acts, which narrates the birth of the church, never mentions him by name again. He was there at Pentecost, 10 days later. He saw the tongues of fire descend upon everyone's heads. He spoke in other languages, but his voice is lost in the chorus. Peter is the one who stands up and preaches. Matthias is just part of the "and the others." He was there when Peter and John healed the cripple at the temple gate. He was probably right behind them, but the camera did not focus on him. He was there when the apostles were arrested by the Sanhedrin. He was imprisoned with them. He was whipped with them. The text says that they rejoiced that they were counted worthy to suffer shame. Matthias suffered, and his suffering was anonymous. He became a number. He became one of the 12. His only function was to complete the number. And once the number was complete, his personal identity was erased. He disappeared into the story he was supposed to star in. The man chosen to replace the most infamous apostle became the most unknown of all. The canonical text, the official history, erased him from the record. He became an occupied seat, not a man. And if the official history, the one written while the events were still fresh, erased him so completely. What happened to the man? What happens when the witness disappears? What occurs when one of the 12 foundational stones is lost in the fog? This is where true forgetfulness begins. When the canonical text falls silent, the void is filled by legend. But legend is not history. It is the desperate echo of people trying to remember. And in the case of Matthias and the other silent apostles, the echoes are not even in agreement. They are a chaos of contradictory rumors. What happened to Matthias? If you seek the answer, tradition offers you not one, but multiple stories, all mutually exclusive. A tradition, recorded by the Greeks, says that he went to Syria, to Cappadocia. He preached to the Gentiles on the coast of the Caspian Sea. And he died there. How? Some say peacefully, of old age, in a bed. A peaceful end for a silent man. Another tradition, much darker and wilder, says that he went to Ethiopia, or to a mythical region called the Land of the Cannibals. In this version, his life is a horror movie. He was imprisoned, had his eyes gouged out, was tied to a stake. The legend says that the Apostle Andrew, who was also in the region, came and miraculously rescued him. And his death? He was crucified in a region called Colchis, or perhaps he was beheaded. A third tradition, recorded by Hippolyto of Rome, says that he never went far. He stayed in Judea, preaching to his own people, and like his master, his own people rejected him. He was arrested by the Sanhedrin, accused of blasphemy, and he died there in Jerusalem, stoned by the crowd, and finally beheaded with an axe by a Roman soldier. What is the truth? Did he die in a bed in Syria? Crucified in Ethiopia? Beheaded in Jerusalem? The answer is that we do not know. And that is the point. The man disappeared so completely that his death became a blank canvas, where each distant church in Germany, Italy, Ethiopia could paint its own origin story to claim him. His relics are supposedly in Trier, Germany, at the Abbey of St. Matthias. But they are also in Padua, Italy. He cannot be in both places. The real man, the one who once stood before Peter, has dissolved. And he is not alone in this emptiness. His fate is the fate of all silent apostles. Simon the Zealot, the revolutionary, one tradition says he joined Judas Tadeo. They went to Persia, to Babylon. They were martyred together, perhaps sawn in half. Another tradition says he went to Egypt. A third, the strangest, says he sailed to the end of the known world, to the Roman island of Britain, and was crucified there. Bartholomew, the man without deceit? One tradition says he went to India. Another, more famous, says he went to Armenia. And his martyrdom is the most grotesque of all. He was skinned alive, his skin torn from his body, and then beheaded. Are these stories real? No. They are the desperate attempt of history to fill a terrifying silence. The truth is that these men, the eyewitnesses, God's companions, left Jerusalem with their commission, walked toward the horizon, and simply disappeared. This leaves us with the coldest question. Why? Why did history, and perhaps God himself, choose these men for the highest honor, only to erase them from the record? Was it a failure? Were they second-class apostles? No, it was quite the opposite. Their disappearance was not their failure. It was their purpose. The building of faith needed builders. But there are two types of builders. There are architects, those who design the towers, those who sign the plans. Those were Peter and Paul. Their names are on the facade. They are visible, public, celebrated. But a building is not supported by its towers. It is supported by its foundations. Matthias, Simon the Zealot, James the Less, they were the foundations. And the work of a foundation is to be invisible. The work of a foundation is to be underground, in darkness, in the mud, bearing a weight that would crush anything else. No one applauds a foundation. No one writes poems about it. But if the foundation fails, the entire building collapses. If the foundation is visible, it is because the building is in ruins. Matthias's work was not to write epistles. His work was to walk 1,000 miles to a lost village in the mountains of Cappadocia, a village whose name no one remembers. His work was to sit with 10 people and tell them the story. His work was to form a small community, and then be arrested by the local magistrate, be silently whipped, and be murdered in a dark alley, without a chronicler recording his last words. His legacy is not a book of the New Testament. His legacy is that small church that survived, that clung to the story and passed it on, that became a point of light in the darkness. Matthias's destiny was the purest of all. He was called to do one thing: complete the number, to be the 12th. And once he fulfilled that role, he dedicated himself to real work. And the real work was anonymous. It was to disappear. He was the apostle who disappeared, not despite his calling, but because of it. His work was not to be seen. His work was to build. And true builders rarely sign their work. They simply leave it behind, strong, solid, so others can live upon it.